The grand lobby of Titan Holdings shimmered with luxury, marble floors so clean they reflected faces, golden chandeliers glinting overhead, and suits worth millions brushing past the humble workers who kept the building alive. It was Monday morning and everyone moved quickly. Everyone except the janitor. He was a middle-aged man, dark-skinned, tall but slightly bent from years of hard labor. His uniform was faded blue, his worn shoes squeaked faintly as he mopped near the entrance. His name tag read Emeka, though few ever bothered to read it. Then came the echo of footsteps, strong, confident, and impatient. The billionaire himself, Mr. Damien Cole, entered. His charcoal suit was spotless, his gold wristwatch gleamed, and his deep ebony complexion shone under the warm lights. People bowed, whispered, and cleared his path. But as fate would have it, Emeka's mop bucket tipped over. A wave of dirty water splashed across the billionaire's polished shoes. The entire room froze. Emeka gasped, dropping to his knees immediately. "I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't mean to." The billionaire's jaw tightened. His sharp eyes flashed with rage. And before anyone could stop him, slap. The sound echoed through the hall like thunder. Papers fell. The receptionist gasped. The security guard stiffened. The old janitor's head turned slightly from the impact, but he didn't fight back. He only looked up, eyes glistening with tears, and whispered, "God bless you, sir." Damien adjusted his cufflinks, voice cold as ice. "Next time watch where you work." He walked past, leaving a hush so heavy that no one dared breathe. The crowd stared at Emeka, some with pity, others with silent fear. But as Emeka picked up his bucket again, something strange happened. A tall woman in a crisp navy blue gown stepped out of the elevator. Her presence drew every eye, graceful, powerful, her dark brown skin glowing under the chandelier. She looked from the janitor to the billionaire's retreating back, and frowned. "Who did this?" she asked quietly. The receptionist hesitated. "Ma'am? Mr. Cole." The woman's expression darkened. She turned toward the door, but before she left, she knelt briefly beside the old janitor. "Are you all right?" Emeka nodded faintly. "Yes, ma'am. I've survived worse." Her eyes softened. "Good," she whispered. "Because today might be the last time they see you as a janitor." He looked up, confused. But she was already walking away, her heels clicking with purpose, her head held high. No one knew who she was. No one knew what she was about to change. But that slap was only the beginning. The morning sun glowed softly through the glass walls of Titan Holdings Tower, illuminating the company's logo, a golden lion head, symbolizing strength, ambition, and dominance. Inside, whispers still lingered from the shocking scene earlier. The janitor's humiliation had spread through every department like wildfire. By noon, the billionaire, Mr. Damien Cole, sat in his penthouse office, a sprawling space of marble and chrome overlooking the city of Lagos. His dark brown hands rested on the edge of his polished mahogany desk, his sharp eyes fixed on a digital report. But he wasn't reading. Not really. His mind replayed the slap, the way the janitor had looked at him, not with anger but with peace. That calm look unsettled him more than any argument ever could. A knock came at the door. His secretary, Mrs. Beasy, entered. Her cocoa-brown skin gleamed in the sunlight, and her calm, polite voice carried a hint of tension. "Sir," she said carefully, "the new project consultant has arrived. She's waiting in the conference room." Damien nodded curtly. "Send her in 5 minutes." As the door closed, he adjusted his tie and mask of confidence, hiding the unease that had been creeping through him all morning. Downstairs, the main conference room buzzed with energy. Department heads shuffled papers, murmuring about the consultant they'd been told to expect. A woman from a foreign investment firm who would determine whether Titan Holdings would secure a Billionaire partnership. Then the door opened. Every voice fell silent. The woman who entered was the same one from the lobby. She wore an elegant white gown now, paired with gold earrings that gleamed softly under the lights. Her hair was braided neatly, her posture regal. Her rich, dark brown skin radiated quiet power. Every step she took commanded respect. The managers stood instinctively. None of them had realized she was the consultant. She offered a calm smile. "Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amara Nwosu, Senior Consultant from Global Dynamics Investments. I was told your CEO will be joining us shortly." Murmurs rippled across the room. Someone whispered, "Wait, she's the same woman from the lobby." At that moment, the door opened again. Damien entered, his stride confident, his voice steady. "Good afternoon," he said. "I'm Damien Cole, CEO of Titan Holdings. Let's make this quick." He froze. The woman turned slowly to face him, her calm eyes meeting his. The room went utterly silent. Their gazes locked, his filled with disbelief, hers with quiet, knowing strength. "Mr. Cole," she said softly, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "I believe we've met before." Damien's face paled slightly. He glanced toward the others, realizing what this meant. The same woman who had witnessed his outburst was now sitting opposite him, holding the power to decide the fate of his company. He tried to recover. "Yes, briefly I believe," he said stiffly. "Let's proceed with business." Amara took her seat gracefully, unfolding her laptop. "Of course. But before we begin, I'd like to ask a question." Damien's voice was clipped. "Go ahead." She leaned forward slightly. "What defines a company's worth, its profits, or its people?" The managers exchanged puzzled glances. Damien forced a smile. "Both, I suppose. But results drive value, Miss Nwosu." Amara nodded slowly. "Interesting answer," she said. "Because I saw one of your employees this morning being treated as if he had none." The air thickened. Even the clock seemed to tick louder. Damien's jaw tightened. "If this is about that cleaner, he is a man," Amara interrupted softly. "A man who works here. A man your company depends on more than you realize." Her words sliced through the room like a quiet blade. For the first time, Damien didn't know what to say. The staff shifted uncomfortably. The janitor's story had turned into something larger, a test of character, a mirror held up to their billionaire boss. Amara closed her laptop, stood slowly and said, "Perhaps before we talk about Billionaire investments, we should first talk about human value." With that she walked out, graceful, composed, unstoppable. Damien sat frozen in his chair, staring after her, his heart pounding harder than it had in years. Something told him this woman wasn't done with him yet. And deep down, for the first time in his life, the billionaire felt something unfamiliar: shame. The next morning arrived with a heavy, humid breeze that hung over the skyline of Lagos. Titan Holdings Tower gleamed in the early sunlight, but inside its walls, tension hummed like electricity. Everyone had heard what happened in the boardroom yesterday, how a mysterious consultant had confronted the CEO himself. Mr. Damien Cole sat in his office again, staring at a blank tablet screen. His reflection in the glass showed a man who looked polished on the outside but restless within. His dark brown skin glistened slightly under the morning light, his neatly trimmed beard and sharp haircut perfectly kept, but his eyes, those deep, commanding eyes, held something new. Doubt. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face. The homeless woman he'd disrespected. The same woman now sitting on the other side of his empire, unshaken, confident, powerful. A knock came. "Sir, someone left this at the front desk for you," said his assistant, a slim young man with copper-brown skin and a soft voice. He placed a cream-colored envelope on the desk and left quietly. Damien hesitated before opening it. Inside was a note written in neat cursive handwriting. "Mr. Cole, there's more to yesterday's meeting than you realize. Meet me at the Haven Cafe at 2 p.m. Come alone. Amara Nwosu." Damien exhaled, the paper trembling slightly between his fingers. For reasons he couldn't explain, he felt compelled to go. By 2 p.m., the billionaire's sleek black SUV pulled up outside the Haven Cafe, a small, charming spot tucked between the busy streets of Victoria Island. It wasn't a place he'd ever been, too ordinary for his kind. But today he stepped out in a simple white shirt and dark jeans, trying not to draw attention. Inside, the cafe buzzed softly with the sound of spoons against teacups and whispered conversations. Amara sat by the window, dressed in a light blue African print gown, her hair tied in a neat bun. The sunlight caught her deep brown skin beautifully, giving her an almost radiant presence. When Damien approached, she looked up and smiled faintly. "You came." He nodded, sliding into the seat across from her. "You didn't leave me much of a choice." "Everyone has a choice," she replied calmly, stirring her tea. "Even you." There was a pause. He watched her for a moment, then leaned forward. "Who are you really, Amara? Because clearly you're not just a consultant." She smiled, not answering immediately. "You're right," she said finally. "I'm not here for business. I'm here because of something that happened years ago." Damien frowned slightly. "Years ago?" She nodded, her gaze turning distant. "You were 19 then. Your father owned coal enterprises. Do you remember the fire that nearly destroyed your father's first company branch in Surulere?" His heart skipped. "Of course," he said slowly. "That night changed everything. A security guard saved my life. My father said I'd been pulled out seconds before the roof collapsed. Amara's eyes met his. That guard was my father. Silence. Damien stared at her, his lips parting slightly. Your father? She nodded. Yes. His name was Sunday Nwosu. He died from the injuries he got that night while you lived. You went on to build an empire and we, her voice softened, we went on to lose everything. Damien sat frozen. His throat tightened but no words came. I came to see you, Amara continued quietly. Not for revenge, not for pity, but to remind you that power means nothing if you forget the people who helped you rise. She reached into her purse and placed a small charred ID tag on the table, her father's old security badge. He picked it up with trembling fingers, staring at the burned edges, the faded name barely visible beneath the soot. I had this all my life, she said. And every time I wanted to hate you, something stopped me. Because my father used to say, wealth only matters when it serves others. Her words sank into him like stones dropped into deep water. Amara, he whispered, his voice breaking slightly, I didn't know. I know you didn't, she replied gently. That's why I gave you a chance yesterday, to see if you'd changed. Damien lowered his head, shame washing over him. I don't deserve forgiveness. Amara folded her arms softly on the table. Then don't ask for it. Earn it. For a long moment they sat in silence, the sounds of the cafe fading around them. Then she stood up. I'll see you at the board meeting tomorrow, she said, her tone calm but purposeful. I'll tell everyone the truth, both about who I am and about who you've become. Damien looked up at her, voice trembling. And if that truth destroys me? She gave him one last look, gentle but unyielding. Then maybe it will save the man you used to be. She turned and walked out, her silhouette framed by the golden sunlight streaming through the cafe doors. For the first time in his life the billionaire felt small. Not because he'd lost control, but because he'd met someone whose strength didn't come from power, but from pain transformed into grace. He sat there for a long while, clutching the badge, realizing something he'd forgotten long ago. That every empire begins with a single act of kindness, and ends the moment pride replaces gratitude. The glass walls of Titan Holdings shimmered under the Lagos sun, but inside, unease rippled through every corridor. Something was different that morning. The staff could feel it. Whispers ran from the reception desk to the 30th floor. Everyone knew that today's emergency board meeting wasn't ordinary. In the topmost conference room, the billionaire CEO sat at the head of a long mahogany table. His posture was as straight as ever, his dark brown hands folded neatly before him. Yet, his eyes betrayed a quiet storm, the kind that brews when a man knows the truth is coming for him. The board members filled the seats one by one. Middle-aged executives in sharp black suits, their polished shoes tapping lightly on the marble floor. Some exchanged nervous glances, others pretended to scroll through their tablets. A young woman entered the room, Amara Nwosu. Her elegant navy blue gown flowed gracefully as she walked, her rich dark skin glowing under the soft ceiling lights. The room went silent. Every eye turned toward her, half in surprise, half in confusion. Mr. Damien Cole rose from his seat almost instinctively. Miss Nwosu, he said quietly. But she simply nodded, composed as she placed a brown folder on the table. Her calm presence carried more authority than the suits surrounding her. I requested today's meeting, she began, her voice clear but gentle. Because before this company moves forward, it must face what it's tried to forget. The HR director frowned. Miss Nwosu, if this is about the incident 2 days ago? It's not, she interrupted softly. This is about the night that built this company. The room fell into a heavy hush. Even the air conditioner's hum seemed to fade. Amara's gaze shifted to Damien. 30 years ago, there was a fire at the Coal Enterprises branch in Surulere. A young heir was trapped inside, and a security guard risked his life to save him. That man was my father, Sunday Nwosu. Gasps filled the room. She continued, her tone unwavering. He carried that boy out of the burning building and died from his injuries days later. But no one ever spoke his name again. No letter of thanks, no recognition, no compensation for the family he left behind. Her words cut through the silence like lightning. Damien closed his eyes briefly, then stood slowly. Everything she said is true, he said, his deep voice echoing through the hall. I was that boy. And her father was the man who gave me life twice, first when he saved me and now again through his daughter. The board members exchanged stunned glances. Damien turned to face Amara fully. I insulted this woman in front of you all, not knowing who she was. I saw her as less than me, A mistake I'll never forget. He took a deep breath. I once believed success was about how much you could own. But now I see, it's about how much you can give. A murmur spread around the room as everyone listened, spellbound. Amara slowly opened the folder and laid out several papers. Photos of her late father, the fire reports, and a faded employee badge still burnt around the edges. This, she said softly, is the man your company forgot. But I didn't come here to shame anyone. I came to finish what he started. The head of finance, a short man with dark skin and round glasses, leaned forward. Finish, what exactly? Amara looked up, her expression calm but resolute. To rebuild this company's heart. She turned toward Damien. Mr. Cole has agreed to establish a foundation, in honor of my father and every forgotten worker who gave their lives for this company's success. A foundation that will support their families, educate their children, and remind us that every empire stands on the shoulders of the unseen. The boardroom was silent again, but this time, it was a silence filled with respect. Then one by one hands began to clap. It started slow, hesitant, then grew louder, stronger, united. Some stood, others nodded solemnly, and even the CEO's assistant wiped tears discreetly. Damien looked at Amara with a mixture of guilt and admiration. You've done what I never had the courage to do, he said softly. She smiled faintly. And you've done what most men in your place would never, you listened. He took a step forward and extended his hand. Let's finish this together. Amara looked at his hand for a long moment, then shook it. The applause swelled again, not for wealth, not for power, but for truth. As the meeting ended, sunlight streamed through the wide windows, casting golden streaks across the table. The burnt security badge on the folder caught the light, its metallic glint a reminder of sacrifice and redemption. For a brief, beautiful moment, everyone in the room understood something that money could never buy, the weight of gratitude. Outside, the city of Lagos moved on with its usual chaos, but inside Titan Tower, something had shifted. The empire that once thrived on pride now took its first breath of humility. And at the center of it all stood two people, a billionaire who learned to kneel and a daughter who finally saw her father honored as a hero. The following week, the sun hung high over Lagos, its glare bouncing off the glass facade of Titan Tower. The air inside the building was heavy, not with work or ambition but with shame. The same people who once mocked, whispered, and rolled their eyes at the homeless-looking cleaner, now walked with their heads bowed. In the staff lounge, conversations halted when Amara's name came up. People who once called her the girl with no place, now spoke of her with trembling respect. She was no longer the girl who cleaned the marble floors. She was the woman rebuilding the empire. That morning, Amara arrived at the company in a simple white gown. No designer logos, no gold jewelry, only quiet confidence and purpose. Her radiant dark brown skin glowed against the fabric, and her natural hair was neatly styled into soft curls that framed her calm, expressive face. She walked with grace, her sandals clicking lightly on the polished floor. As she entered the building, the receptionist, the same young woman who had once refused her entry, stood frozen behind her desk. Her palms trembled as she lowered her gaze. "Good morning, ma'am," she whispered, voice shaking. Amara stopped for a moment and smiled faintly. "Good morning," she replied. "How are you today?" The receptionist blinked in surprise. I'm fine, ma'am. Thank you." Her eyes filled with tears as Amara walked past. The act of kindness, so small, yet so profound, struck her harder than any rebuke ever could. In the conference hall upstairs, the staff gathered for an unexpected meeting. Damien Cole stood at the front, dressed in a simple ash-colored suit, his deep ebony skin gleaming under the soft lights. His demeanor was calm, humbled, not proud. When Amara entered, the room rose to their feet in silence. She moved to the podium, her poise commanding yet gentle. Behind her, the company's new banner glowed, Titan Foundation, built on truth, sustained by grace. She began softly. "A few weeks ago, I walked into this building as someone who didn't belong. I was laughed at, insulted, and dismissed. But I've learned something. No one's laughter can erase your purpose if your heart is right." A wave of emotion filled the room. She continued, her voice steady but thick with feeling. "This company was built on pain, on people who gave everything and were forgotten. But from today, no worker will be invisible again. Not the cleaner, not the guard, not the driver. Every person's name will matter." Heads bowed across the hall. Some wiped tears, others stared blankly at the floor. In the crowd, the janitor who once watched Amara get humiliated stood near the back. His uniform was still old and faded, his hands rough from years of work. When she looked his way, their eyes met. He nodded slowly, a gesture of respect and quiet pride. At that moment, the door at the back of the hall opened. An older woman walked in, wrinkled hands, gray scarf, dark skin creased with time. She was the company's oldest cleaner, one who had worked there for decades but was always overlooked. Amara walked down from the stage and took her hand, leading her to the front. "This," she said, turning to the audience, "is Mrs. Chioma Okafor. She has been here longer than most of us. Yet how many of you know her name?" No one spoke. "She represents every person who works quietly while others take credit. From today we honor her first. She will be the first recipient of the Titan Foundation's Lifetime Dignity Award." The applause erupted, echoing through the building. Mrs. Chioma covered her face in tears, her old hands trembling as Amara hugged her tightly. Even Damien, the once proud billionaire, clapped with emotion glistening in his eyes. He turned to the staff and said, "You laughed at her when she walked in, but she never stopped walking toward her purpose. You mocked her pain, but it became her power. Let this be a lesson: never judge anyone by what they carry on their back, but by what they carry in their heart." Silence filled the room again, not awkward silence but reflective, healing silence. Outside, the Lagos skyline shimmered under the afternoon sun. The laughter that once carried mockery now carried redemption. Amara looked out through the window, at the city that had watched her rise, and whispered to herself, "Mama, I kept your promise." Downstairs, the same receptionist who had turned her away was now in the lobby, organizing a donation drive for the foundation. The guards who once ignored her now stood taller, proud to work under her leadership. And as the staff filed out one by one, no one dared to call her the cleaner again. To them, she was a living lesson, a story of divine reversal that they would tell their children. For the first time, Titan Tower didn't feel like a building of pride. It felt like a place where dignity had finally found a home. The sun was setting over Lagos, casting golden light across the tall glass windows of Titan Tower. Inside, the atmosphere was completely different, no longer cold and arrogant but peaceful, filled with laughter and new beginnings. The staff gathered in the courtyard for the company's first Staff Appreciation Day. Bright decorations hung across the building, soft music played in the background, and people who once refused to speak to each other now shared smiles. At the front of the courtyard stood the new stage. The company's banner fluttered behind it, Titan Foundation, Dignity for All. Amara walked up slowly, dressed in a graceful white gown that shimmered under the evening light. Her dark brown skin glowed with confidence and grace, her natural hair wrapped neatly in a soft scarf. Every step she took reminded everyone of how far she had come, from a mock janitor to the heart of the company's redemption. Standing beside her was Damien Cole, the billionaire who had once slapped her in anger. His posture was calm now, his deep ebony skin glowing softly under the sunset. Gone was the arrogance that used to surround him. Now his eyes carried peace and gratitude. The crowd fell silent as Amara took the microphone. Her voice was calm, gentle, yet powerful. "Once upon a time," she began, "I was invisible here. People laughed at my pain, mocked my clothes, and judged my silence. But what they didn't know was that sometimes, life hides your purpose inside humiliation. The same place that broke you is often the place that will raise you." Her words hung in the air like a sermon. She looked toward Damien. "And sometimes the people who hurt you are not your enemies, they are lessons in disguise." Damien stepped forward, his voice low but clear. "I was blinded by pride. I forgot that success means nothing if you lose your humanity. You taught me more than any business deal ever could." Amara turned to the crowd again. "To everyone here, never forget that kindness is power. Respect the ones you think are beneath you because one day, you may find yourself standing beneath them." The entire courtyard erupted in applause. Some of the staff were in tears, others bowed their heads in shame, but it wasn't shame from guilt, it was the kind that comes with realization. The security guard who once ignored her smiled faintly and clapped the loudest. The receptionist who had mocked her wiped her eyes, whispering, "I'm sorry." Amara stepped down from the stage and walked straight to them. She hugged the receptionist gently. "You don't need to say sorry," she whispered. "Just never treat anyone like they're less than human again." At that moment, the choir began to sing softly, a local hymn about mercy and second chances. The crowd swayed, some raising their hands, others closing their eyes in peace. Damien raised his hand to speak once more. "Today marks a new beginning," he said. "From now on, Titan Foundation will sponsor education for every janitor, cleaner, and staff member who dreams of a better life. No one here will ever be invisible again. The applause thundered louder than before. Cameras flashed as the sunset turned the sky orange and gold. As the music faded, Amara looked up at the sky and whispered, "Mama, I did it." The final shot panned across the crowd, black faces glowing with joy and redemption, the billionaire smiling beside the woman who had once been a nobody, and the workers clapping as fireworks lit up the Lagos sky. A soft wind brushed through the courtyard as the lights dimmed, leaving the banner shining under the moonlight. Grace restores all things. Sparkle's moral of the tale: never look down on anyone. The person you mock today might be the hand that saves you tomorrow. True power is not in money, it's in humility, respect, and love.